Billionaire's shocking insult to Black Maid exposed. Her incredible reply transforms everything. Mia stood in the opulence of Russell Hawthorne's mansion, clutching a trash bag tighter than she should. The laughter of the elite chimed around her like a mocking chorus, a reminder of the life she struggled to build for her daughter, Alana. She forced a smile, but her heart was heavy. What kind of future could she offer her little girl while cleaning up after this assembly of extravagance? The weight of her grandmother's teachings, the value of hard work, integrity, family, clashed with the reality of her existence. They buzzed in her mind like voices from a past she clung to, urging her to keep pushing through. As the music soared, the guests reveled in their bubbles of privilege. Among them, Russell, with his brash demeanor and air of invincibility, tossed jabs of discussion around effortlessly. Mia retreated behind the nearest potted fern, just trying to escape the deafening sound of money talking. Yet, when she overheard him say, "Just look at that maid, she probably doesn't even know what a real meal tastes like," her heart stopped. His words, so casual and callous, slashed through the laughter and left a chilling silence. Mia felt the heat of anger rising within her, not just at him, but at a system that deemed her invisible, a mere cog in the wheel of his success. She stood frozen, paralyzed by shock, and yet there was a fire igniting deep inside. Those words weren't just an insult, they were a strike against everything she'd endured. Could she really let that pass unchallenged? Was there any value in silence when everything she dreamed of for Alana was at stake? Before she could anchor herself in hesitation, Mia's thoughts turned to Alana's bright, smiling face. Would her daughter have to navigate this same labyrinth of prejudice? Would she feel the sting of being dismissed, alone in the shadows? No, she wouldn't let that happen. Digging deep, Mia found the strength to lift her chin, her voice trembling yet firm. "Maybe if you looked closer, Mr. Hawthorne, you'd see the dignity in hard work. Not all of us have silver spoons to eat from." Mia shot back, her words resonating in the stunned silence. They absorbed the weight of her courage like an electric charge. She wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for every disregarded person in that room. Mia's heart raced, her breath uneven as she scanned the bewildered faces of the guests. Would they allow her voice to linger long enough to matter, or would they brush it off like dust? The laughter faded, replaced by murmurs. Her head spun. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But the moment did more than belabor her internal struggle. It ignited a maelstrom of consequences she hadn't anticipated. In the days that followed, news outlets dissected her words, twisting and turning them until Mia became an unintentional symbol of resilience. A wave of empowerment rolled through her community, yet within her, the doubt persisted. Was she truly ready for the scrutiny, the spotlight? Her heart ached with conflicting emotions, pride for her newfound voice entwined with anxiety of what would come next. As she sat at her kitchen table, late into the night, planning her next move, the future loomed like a shadow. What would it mean to confront Russell Hawthorne, not just as an individual, but as part of a much larger battle against systemic elitism? The lure of being heard collided with the fear of being crushed under the weight of powerful forces. Just then, a notification pinged on her phone, revealing a message from a renowned civil rights attorney eager to help her. Hope flickered in her like a streetlight on a lonely road, but it felt fragile, like glass about to shatter. What if this were another dream that would slip through her fingers? She stared into the mirror, feeling the intensity of her situation reflecting back. The stakes were too high. She had to keep her resolve, to stand for more than just herself. As Alana's soft, sleepy voice broke the silence, peering into the room, Mia felt the urgency mount. Could she finally transform not only her life, but also the lives of countless others? With every fiber in her being, she breathed deeply, preparing to face not just Russell, but an entire structure that had underestimated them both. The question, buried deep in her mind, hung precariously, unresolved. Could a single voice truly spark a revolution in a world that thrived on inequality? Mia awoke the next morning with the remnants of last night's confrontation swirling in her mind. Sleep hadn't come easily. She had replayed the scene over and over in her thoughts, wrestling with the adrenaline that propelled her to speak out. In her heart, she felt the flickers of possibility urging her on, yet clouds of self-doubt hung heavy over her. Was she ready to take the next step? In the kitchen, the scent of pancakes filled the air, and she turned her attention to Alana, her ray of light. As she flipped the last pancake, her daughter's bright eyes welcomed her. "Mommy, what's that you were talking about? About the man who said those mean things?" Alana's innocent question pierced through Mia's focus, reminding her that her actions weren't just about herself. Mia knelt to Alana's level, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Sweetheart, some people don't understand how hard we work. But that doesn't mean we're less important." Each word felt like a promise, a commitment to forge a different path for Alana, a path that incorporated dignity and resilience. "Are you going to talk to that man again?" Alana asked, curiosity written across her small face. "I think I will," Mia replied, swallowing the knot forming in her throat. The thought of confronting Russell again ignited both fear and resolve within her. She couldn't shy away. This was an opportunity to redefine her narrative. Later that day, Mia met the civil rights attorney, Veronica, who offered her expertise and support. Sitting in the warm, sunlit cafe, Mia felt her nerves wrestle with anticipation. Veronica, sharp and attentive, wasted no time. "Mia, you have become a voice for many. Your strength lies not just in your words, but in your story. We can help you amplify it." As they dove into discussions about potential strategies, Mia listened intently. She envisioned how to frame her message, but a mix of excitement and trepidation coursed through her. Could she become the embodiment of empowerment, or would this journey expose her vulnerabilities? Veronica must have sensed her apprehension, for she leaned in closer and said, "Facing old power structures can be daunting. But know this, you aren't alone. Use your story. Your experience is your platform." Mia nodded, but doubt still gnawed at her. Even as her heart swelled with a newfound sense of purpose, she questioned her ability to hold her ground against someone as formidable as Russell Hawthorne. "Let's practice what you want to say," urged Veronica, pulling out a notepad. "What would you want to tell him if you had a chance?" In that moment, Mia's mind raced back to the party, to the instant she had claimed her space among the elite, drawing from a depth of indignation she didn't know existed. "I would tell him that I see through his arrogance, that wealth doesn't dictate worth. He doesn't get to dismiss the effort I put into every single day of my life," Mia started slowly, building conviction until the words flowed with power. "Yes, that's it. Go deeper. What does it mean for you, for others?" Veronica encouraged, her pen scratching furiously as she captured Mia's passion. With every word, Mia found clarity. This wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who felt devalued by society's standards. The memories of her grandmother's teachings fueled her resolve as her voice grew bolder. The vision of Alana's future became more vivid, more deserving of respect. Time slipped by as Mia and Veronica worked, shaping her message into something that could challenge the status quo. But as they wrapped up the session, doubt whispered insidiously within her again. Was this revolution truly hers to lead? The anticipation for her next confrontation loomed like a storm on the horizon. The truth stood before her, and soon she would have to decide what she was willing to sacrifice for the stand she was about to take. As Mia left the cafe, determination blossomed inside her, but a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if standing up only resulted in retaliation? The stakes were rising. The moment of truth was coming, and with it the ever-present uncertainty of how far she was willing to go. Mia spent the next few days in a whirlwind of preparation. Each morning began the same, with the aroma of breakfast wafting through the apartment, Alana's laughter echoing in the kitchen. Yet underlying those moments of joy was an unsettling tension. Mia's mind was a battlefield, wrestling between her ambitions and the chilling fear of what stood in her way. She submerged herself in her work, determined to reclaim the narrative that had nearly shattered her confidence. Every detail of her days became a practice. Conversations with coworkers transformed into rehearsals. Mundane errands morphed into strategic planning. The more she visualized standing up to Russell, the more she could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Yet each step closer to confrontation brought forth the brutal reality of the backlash she might face. Veronica's continuous support became a lifeline. They met several times, each session peeling back layers of Mia's story, exposing the raw, profound truths behind her fight. Veronica helped her articulate complex feelings into something relatable. Your words have the power to resonate. Embrace the discomfort, that's where the change happens, she would remind Mia. And with every affirmation, Mia felt the spark of hope ignite within her. One afternoon, while sitting at her desk, the weight of everything came crashing down. The success at work felt insignificant in the shadow of what awaited her. Shaking hands gripped her pen as she scribbled thoughts in her notebook. Am I strong enough? What if I fail? The contemplation paralyzed her momentarily, until she recalled Alana's bright face, the innocence in her eyes that urged Mia to fight for a world where her daughter was respected. Compelled by this newfound focus, Mia reached for her phone, calling Veronica in a moment of desperation. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Mia, remember why you're doing this. It's not just about confronting Russell. It's about paving the way for others like you. This is a battle for your dignity and, ultimately, for Alana's future. Veronica's words resonated deeply, igniting a fierceness within Mia she hadn't recognized before. That night, with a quiet resolve, Mia drafted her speech for the upcoming confrontation. She wove in personal anecdotes, detailing the sacrifices of her ancestors, the dreams sewn into the fabric of her life. Each word became a mantra, and as she practiced in front of the mirror, her reflection morphed into a symbol of empowerment rather than vulnerability. However, lingering doubts transformed into physical sensations. Her stomach knotted, palms sweated. What if Russell dismissed her? Or worse, how would her colleagues react? These fears loomed large as she considered the ripple effect her actions could create. Unbidden, memories of her grandmother's stories flooded her mind. The struggles faced but never succumbed to, the emphasis on standing tall against injustice. What would she say if she were here, Mia wondered, and the answer was immediate. Her grandmother would urge her to stand firm and speak her truth, no matter the risk. With that resolve crystallized, she began to feel herself shift. The fear transformed into a calculated strategy, shaping her narrative as she wrote her final lines. I choose to confront ignorance, not with hate, but with the intent to enlighten. I won't let my worth be defined by someone else's perception. The next day would bring the moment of truth. As she walked into the cafe where the confrontation was set to take place, the air felt thick with tension, anticipation sparking in her chest. But just before the meeting, Mia received a text from Veronica. "Mia, remember, this isn't just about that moment. It's about a movement. Stand tall." Mia's heart raced at the thought of the storm she was about to unleash, not just against Russell, but within herself as well. Standing there, she felt the weight of centuries of struggle, hope, and resilience surge through her. The time had come to face Russell, and, more importantly, to face the woman she was becoming. What would happen when she finally stood her ground? Would she advocate for herself, or would fear reclaim its grip? The answers beckoned just beyond the horizon, waiting to be unveiled. The cafe was bustling, the hum of conversation blending with the clinking of cups and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Mia entered, her heart pounding in rhythm with the nervous beat in her chest. She scanned the room, spotting Russell seated near the back, his demeanor as relaxed as ever, a smug confidence radiating off him in waves. The sight of him ignited a new spark within her, not of fear, but of resolve. This was the moment she had worked tirelessly for. Gathering her thoughts, Mia took a deep breath, acknowledging the whirlwind of emotion swirling inside her. Each step towards Russell felt heavier yet lighter simultaneously. The heaviness of her past burdens contrasted with the buoyancy of her newfound purpose. She had come too far to turn back now. There was no room for uncertainty, nor for the self-doubt that had plagued her for years. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed her handbag down, a purposeful action intended to ground herself. She studied Russell as she approached. He looked up, surprised, and a flicker of disdain crossed his face. Underneath that disdain, Mia could perceive a glimmer of something else, an unsettling realization that she was no longer the timid employee he had dismissed on countless occasions. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. Mia squared her shoulders, defying her instinct to back down. "I need to speak with you about your recent comments. They've been hurtful, not just to me, but to others as well," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. The words felt foreign yet liberating as they slipped past her lips. Russell leaned back, arms crossed. "Is this a joke? You really think your opinion matters?" The challenge in his eyes was blatant. He was used to wielding his power without question. "I know it does," Mia countered, disarming his arrogance with her unwavering gaze. "This isn't just about me. It's about every single individual you've belittled in this office. You may not recognize the impact of your words, but they resonate deeply." She felt the power of the assertion wash over her. How empowering it was to finally confront her fears and articulate them with conviction. His eyebrows shot upwards, gears visibly turning in his mind. Russell was accustomed to silence, to indifference in the face of his condescension, and Mia's confrontation rattled him. In that moment, she knew this was not merely about winning an argument. It was about reclaiming her narrative, redefining her worth, and possibly opening a door for others who felt trapped like she once had. "Are you going to play the victim now?" he scoffed, trying to regain control of the conversation. Mia's breath deepened, every nerve in her body coiling with determination. "No, I'm not playing the victim. I'm taking back my power. I choose to stand here, speak up, and demand respect, which you have yet to give." As she spoke, she felt walls she didn't know existed begin to crumble around her. Each sentence was a brick removed, creating space for a new version of Mia, one that didn't cower in the face of prejudice or disdain. Russell's expression shifted, a mixture of anger and unease washing over his features. He had underestimated her, and in that moment she could see his facade fracturing. But just then, a commotion drew her attention. An employee from another department had overheard their exchange and was recording it on her phone, visibly intrigued by the confrontation. Mia's heart raced anew. This was no longer a private matter. It was becoming public, and the potential repercussions were dizzying. Would the support she had been seeking emerge from unexpected corners, or would the backlash be too severe to withstand? As she stood there, a mixture of adrenaline and fear swirling within, her own voice gave her the courage to keep going. The stakes were higher than she'd imagined, but retreating now would mean betraying herself and Alana. Determined, she took another step forward, ready to challenge Russell and, in essence, the prevailing beliefs that restrained her and many others. This was just the beginning. But suddenly, a voice broke through Mia's thoughts. "You think you can just speak to him like that and walk away unscathed?" It was a fellow employee, caught in conflicting loyalties, raising the stakes even higher. Would Mia's stand invigorate a movement or ignite a backlash that could destroy everything she had just built? Mia's heart thudded in her chest, the weight of the moment now overshadowing her initial liberation. The fellow employee's voice sliced through the tension like glass. She felt the sharp edge of fear creeping back in, threatening to unravel her resolve. Would this woman's question shift the narrative back in Russell's favor? As she locked eyes with the new challenger, Mia's mind raced. This was it, the crossroads where personal development met professional risk. The risk of being outed, of becoming a target again, loomed large. But there was also the opportunity to galvanize others to find their own voices. "Unscathed?" Mia repeated, the spark of defiance igniting within her. She turned to the woman, who had shifted her position, now a spectator with a newfound scrutiny on Mia. "If silence is safety, then I choose to be vulnerable and unprotected," she declared, grounding herself in the truth of her experience. "Unscathed? No, but I refuse to be a casualty of his cruelty any longer." Russell chuckled derisively, his composure cracked, but still holding a residue of his previous arrogance. "Look at you, trying to play the martyr. It's quite pathetic, really." For a brief moment, she fought an urge to retreat, but then she remembered the faces of her colleagues, those who felt their voices stifled, their spirits burdened. They were counting on her to be brave. The sight of them made her surge forward with conviction. "By speaking up, I show others they're not alone," she asserted, her voice rising. The absurdity of Russell's disdain only fueled her determination. "I will not let you dictate how I feel or how I should respond." As the tension rippled through the cafe, people began listening more intently, their phones down, eyes locked in on the confrontation. Mia felt the flicker of encouragement from faces she recognized. Had she inadvertently started something she hadn't planned for? "Are you really going to risk your career for this? Maybe you should think about the consequences," Russell started again, urgency creeping into his tone as he felt the atmosphere shifting around him. The arrogance he usually wore like armor was cracking, and the fear of losing control flared in his eyes. Mia leaned in, sensing the opportunity. "This isn't about my career. It's about integrity. It's about dignity. Others should feel the same way." Each word felt like a step forward, shedding years of doubt and hesitancy. The employee who had spoken up earlier seemed torn, shifting uncomfortably as she observed the crowd's growing interest. "But you're taking a huge risk. What if he retaliates?" Her voice was hesitant, but it carried the weight of concern. Mia met her gaze, her resolve surfacing anew. "Retaliation is nothing compared to the years of silence and shame I've endured. Everyone has a choice to remain silent or make a stand." She could feel the support creeping in as whispers began circulating amongst her coworkers, encouragement growing in the charged air. As Russell fumed, Mia realized he was losing ground. His facade was crumbling further with every passing second. Still, Mia couldn't ignore the gnawing fear clawing at her gut. She was exposed, and now the risk felt palpable. A voice called out from the crowd, "You're not alone, Mia. We felt the same way." Several nods and murmurs of agreement filled the air, a revelation spreading amongst her peers. Suddenly, the stakes escalated, her choice to fight putting her on a precipice. Was supporting each other enough to combat a harasser like Russell? What would resistance truly mean for her and for them? Mia realized that this was a pivotal moment, not just for herself, but for everyone in the room. The burgeoning sense of solidarity, set against the tension, allowed her to sense the power in their collective struggle. But as the crowd seemed to rally, the fear of retaliation from Russell loomed larger in her mind. As she stood, breathing deeply, aware of every single gaze upon her, she faced Russell one last time. "This is far from over," she declared, "and I will not stand down." The question lingering in her mind was chilling. What would happen to her and her newfound allies when the dust finally settled? Her determination hardened as she sensed the self-doubt creeping in again. As the confrontation continued and grew in intensity, she wondered if they could stand together. But the answer was murky, and the tension was electric, leaving an open narrative for what lay ahead. Mia's pulse raced as she absorbed the swelling support around her. The voices of her colleagues resonated through the cafe, a reassuring hum amidst the chaos. Yet every cheer felt like a double-edged sword. It fortified her resolve, but also stoked the flames of fear within. The weight of uncertainty tugged at her mind. Would her involvement empower or endanger others? Russell's sneer felt sharper now, every bit a warning and a challenge. The heat of the confrontation swirled in the air, flickering like the candle on the table, threatening to extinguish. He stood regally, yet the cracks forming in his demeanor revealed that his confidence was faltering. She could almost hear the grinding gears of his mind churning as he contemplated his next move. "I will ensure you regret your words," he hissed, his composure slipping ever further. Mia, in that reduced moment, grasped tightly to that spark of defiance within her. The vulnerability she had invited took shape not as a weakness, but as a powerful catalyst of change. She could speak and shape this narrative, but what came after could be both illuminating and shadowed in consequence. Mia's pulse raced as she absorbed the swelling support around her. The voices of her colleagues resonated through the cafe, a reassuring hum amidst the chaos. Yet every cheer felt like a double-edged sword. It fortified her resolve, but also stoked the flames of fear within. The weight of uncertainty tugged at her mind. Would her involvement empower or endanger others? Russell's sneer felt sharper now, every bit a warning and a challenge. The heat of the confrontation swirled in the air, flickering like the candle on the table, threatening to extinguish. He stood regally, yet the cracks forming in his demeanor revealed that his confidence was faltering. She could almost hear the grinding gears of his mind churning as he contemplated his next move. "I will ensure you regret your words," he hissed, his composure slipping ever further. Mia, in that reduced moment, grasped tightly to that spark of defiance within her. The vulnerability she had invited took shape not as a weakness, but as a powerful catalyst of change. She could speak and shape this narrative, but what came after could be both illuminating and shadowed in consequence. "Regret?" she challenged, tightening her stance, mirroring his self-assured posture. Regret is what you should feel, not for what I say, but for the harm you've inflicted on those who can't have the luxury of speaking out." Her words ricocheted through the crowd, igniting embers of rage and hope. As she spoke, the realization dawned on her that her voice was becoming a unifying force. This was her moment of transformation, a substantive shift from being a silent participant to a vocal leader, someone who could catalyze change in herself and those standing beside her. An elegant vulnerability began to form into an indomitable strength. Yet still, she questioned her path. Had she truly calculated the fallout? Could their combined voices withstand the inevitable retaliation? With every ounce of courage, she surveyed the room again. It was no longer just about her confrontation with Russell. It was about rewriting a narrative that had plagued countless others. "Fear cannot dictate my worth," she whispered to herself, almost as if in prayer. The subtle shifts in her colleagues' body language gave her hope. Each nod and murmured affirmation was a thread stitching them together in solidarity. No longer just her fight. This movement transcended her individuality. She felt their shared pain, and it galvanized her will. "What will you tell your children?" she continued, her voice steady while her heart surged. "Will you teach them to live in shame, or will you teach them to fight for the dignity we all deserve?" Silence blanketed the cafe, thick and palpable. Russell stared at her, incredulous at her audacity. It was a gamble, and she was all in. But beneath the surface, anxiety bubbled. What came next? The threat of retaliation still loomed, a specter hovering ominously above this burgeoning resistance. The consequences of defiance could be steep, and Mia weighed her options, her mind racing through the endless possibilities. From the corner of her eye, she observed the wrinkled paper on the table, a forgotten note that had somehow landed beside her. In her mind, it connected with her newfound sense of purpose. What if it contained an idea that could amplify their voices even more effectively? Hand trembling, she reached for it. As she unfolded the note, it held the pulse of potential. Could it be a mechanism for organizing, a plan that took shape beyond this single conflict? Mia's heart raced once more, a complexity unfolding within her. This wasn't just a confrontation. This could morph into something greater than retaliation or fear. Could she harness this moment? Then she glanced back at Russell, anger smoldering in his eyes. As she held the crumpled paper, the stakes spiked again, elevating the tension in the air. What awaited her on the other side of this? Would she forge ahead with the unexpected plan, embracing further growth? Or would fear commandeer her path once more? The next chapter in Mia's story was ready to unfold, the answer lying hidden within that crumpled note. Mia's fingers trembled as she smoothed out the crumpled paper, revealing hastily scrawled notes. The words danced before her eyes, fragments of ideas that felt as alive as the emotions swirling in the cafe. It seemed to outline a plan, a strategy that could give form and structure to the rage and hope coiling within her. It seemed to outline a plan, a strategy that could give form and structure to the rage and hope coiling within her. What if this were more than just a rebellion against Russell? What if it could be a creative manifesto that enabled others to join her fight? Each line invoked possibilities, compelling her to act. She envisioned harnessing this energy, not just to confront the hours ahead, but to channel it into a broader statement. A clarion call against behavior she had long tolerated. The thought electrified her. She had the means to bring coherence to their collective desire to resist. Yet, as her mind raced with possibilities, so did the weight of responsibility. She glanced up at Russell, whose demeanor still brimmed with condescension, but now seemed tinted with uncertainty. His confidence faltered as he regarded her with a mix of disbelief and fury. Which would triumph, her emerging leadership or his mastery of control? "Mia," she heard someone whisper from the corner, a colleague whose name she barely knew, but whose face was familiar. "What do we do now?" The question wove tension into the air, the urgency palpable. They were all looking to her, waiting for a direction. Suddenly, the gravity of her words and her role caught up with her. She was aware that she stood on a precipice, dangerously close to plunging into the unknown. "I don't have all the answers," she asserted, swallowing the rising tide of panic. "But I know what I stand for." Her voice rang clearer, more assertive. "Together, we can push forward beyond anger. We can create something that resonates for all who feel voiceless." In that moment, Mia felt the room shift. The excitement that colored her colleagues' faces invigorated her. This was not just about her anymore. It was about shaping a new narrative that could ripple out. She looked back at the notes. Their potential was just now dawning on her. "What if we shared our stories?" she proposed, her heart pounding. "We can create a series of messages about our experiences. Anonymous, powerful statements that expose the truth. Let's blast them out where they can't be ignored." A cacophony of murmurs rippled through the cafe, and she could almost feel the hair on the back of her neck rise with anticipation. Some nodded in agreement, while others hesitated, still gripped by fear. But could they accomplish this? She considered the intricate dynamics that would unfurl. The act of sharing would require them to confront their truths, revealing vulnerabilities that many had kept hidden. Her resolve wavered briefly. Despite the potential for transformation, not all would want to expose the scars of their experiences. "Is this really the right path?" a voice piped up from the back, cutting through her thoughts. "What if it backfires?" "I know the risks," Mia replied, her conviction flaring as she gestured to the group. "But isn't remaining silent more perilous? We could break the cycle of shame." She felt a quickening in her chest, realizing she had tapped into something deeper, an innate desire to protect others and foster real change. Despite her vulnerabilities, the idea ignited a fire she could not ignore. Yet the vision of retaliation loomed in the back of her mind, and she understood that the very act of sharing would invite consequences from Russell and those like him. As she weighed these implications, she suddenly felt invigorated by a new understanding. Maybe it's time we collectively demanded accountability, through our words, through our stories, she asserted, eyes blazing. In the charged atmosphere of the cafe, her new purpose solidified around her like armor. Yet, even as she envisioned this bold step forward, a troubling question loomed. Could she trust her colleagues to be equally courageous? What if she initiated this endeavor only to find them faltering at the threshold of vulnerability? Fingers wrapped around the crumpled paper, she vowed to stand firm. This was a fragile moment, surfacing possibilities that vehicle change, but it was also a catalyst for deep anxiety. The pathway ahead might be littered with challenges and conflict. Russell's glare became sharper as he sensed defeat in the air, and as fear danced beneath the boldness of newfound hope, Mia prepared to confront him head on. This was more than just a personal struggle. It was a moment to define her legacy. What awaited on the other side of this initiative? Would she summon the iron resolve to cultivate her inner strength and guts to lead? Or would the terror of Russell's impending retaliation paralyze her ambitions, shrouding her newfound vision in darkness? Mia's blood raced as she faced the growing tension in the cafe. With every instinct telling her to retreat into the safety of silence, she instead pushed forward, feeling the energy of her colleagues surge around her. The stakes were high, but beneath that weight, a steely determination began to crystallize. This was a defining moment, and she wouldn't back down. "We need a plan," she declared, her voice surprisingly steady. "If we're going to do this, we have to be strategic. Each story matters, but how we present them will determine how they resonate." A chorus of nods confirmed her thoughts, igniting her resolve further. "What if we gathered our narratives first?" another colleague suggested, the soft enthusiasm in their tone palpable. "We could refine them into something more powerful before going public." Mia considered the proposal carefully. Yes, honing their messages would ignite clarity and strength, but it also required vulnerability, an exposing of wounds that many might be reluctant to share. Her mind flickered to Russell, whose impending retaliation loomed like a dark cloud over their budding initiative. Would they risk sharing their truths only to face the wrath he wielded? She raised her arms. "Let's create an outline to work from. Each of us should share our experiences anonymously at first. We can draft them and seek feedback, add dimensions to our voices without revealing ourselves entirely at the outset." This sparked a scramble for materials as others began jotting down ideas on scattered napkins. The energy in the room shifted, igniting a flame of collaborative purpose. Mia's heart raced, fueled by their growing enthusiasm. But beneath that, an unsettling thought crept in. What if some among them didn't believe in the process? "Categorize your stories," she instructed, her voice resolute. "Let's identify our common threads, the truths that we share." As the contributions flowed, Mia found herself drawing connections between fragments of tales that unveiled a painful tapestry of experience. Each story shared shed light on the underlying dynamics of power, fear, and resilience. Yet she understood this reflected more than individual grievances. It was a profound statement against a culture of silence. Still, as they continued to brainstorm, a voice simmered in the back of her mind, questioning the potential backlash. What if Russell discovered their discussions? What if he dismantled their efforts before they could even gain momentum? That thought darkened her exhilaration, but Mia swallowed hard, refocusing on her colleagues' faces, some radiant with hope, others still clouded with doubt. "What we're doing is revolutionary," she affirmed. "It's about honoring our voices, and we need to be brave. We have to show Russell that our stories are not weapons against us, but shields that can protect us." "But what if it all fails?" another voice replied, tinged with a familiar reluctance. "What if we end up damaging our careers?" Mia met their hesitant gaze, feeling their fears ripple in the charged atmosphere. Each emotion was valid, stemming from years of conditioning to keep quiet and comply. "It might be risky," she acknowledged, "but we've been damaged by silence long enough. Isn't it worth the chance to finally be heard?" Her words hung in the air, the weight of them pushing against the caution that had stifled them for far too long. Indeed, as they mulled her proposition, Mia realized she was no longer merely a participant in this fight. She was its architect. Just as the conversation surged forward, Russell appeared at the cafe's entrance, a dreaded presence that froze the room. His eyes scanned the scene, settling on Mia, who felt her heart race in response. She felt as if she were standing on a stage under scrutinizing lights, exposed and vulnerable. Now came the moment of reckoning. Would she summon the courage to maintain their newfound momentum in the face of his oppressive shadow? The time had indeed come to face the music, igniting the conflict that would ultimately shape her path forward. As everyone turned in silent trepidation, the air grew thick with anticipation. Could she confront Russell and protect her colleagues? With the weight of her purpose squarely on her shoulders, Mia stood ready for the confrontation, knowing this was just the beginning. The real test lay in confronting not just the man in front of her, but also the fear that lingered within her. Would she emerge stronger, or would the oppressive hands of doubt pull her back into silence? Mia felt the silence press around her. Russell moved forward, every step exuding authority, and it took everything within her not to shrink back. Her mind raced, but amid the storm of her thoughts, a thread of defiance gained strength. Why had she come so far only to buckle now? Right here, right now, it was possible to ignite something far greater than fear. Her colleagues needed her to be that spark. She met Russell's gaze, holding it steady. "Can I help you, Russell?" she asked, attempting to inject confidence into her trembling voice. He smirked, the expression laced with condescension. "I'm not sure what's happening here, but if it's another one of your brainstorming sessions, I hope you remember your place." Mia's heart raced, not just from his words, but from the indignation it sparked. "This is our space, Russell, and these stories matter." "Stories?" he scoffed. "There's a difference between a story and reality. You can't change how people perceive things just by sharing personal anecdotes. Get real." The cafe felt like a cauldron, swirls of disbelief radiating through her colleagues. Mia forced herself to breathe deeply. His words could crush, but they could also embolden. "You're right," she said deliberately, surprising herself with the calmness in her voice. "But the reality you see isn't the only one that exists. Our truths hold power, and we're ready to share them, even if it makes you uncomfortable." She turned slightly, inviting her colleagues into the moment. "We're not just stories, we're voices that deserve to be heard." Russell's eyes narrowed, the shift in the atmosphere palpable. Mia felt the resolve of her coworkers invigorating her. This wasn't just about her. It was about standing firm against oppressive narratives that kept them silenced. "What exactly do you think you're accomplishing?" He stepped closer, his presence menacing. "Change," Mia replied, allowing herself to step out of the spotlight. She could feel the weight of her peers beside her, a collective energy weaving around them. "Change begins when we start debating our own realities and taking control of our narratives, not when we allow others to dictate them." Russell hesitated, and in that moment, it was as if the cafe inhaled, the audience that populated it holding its collective breath. There was power in the air, a shared energy that surged within her like a lightning bolt. "Let's try a simple exercise," she continued, lowering her voice slightly, yet maintaining her confidence. "What is it that you really fear about the stories we're sharing? Are you worried that it might expose the truth about how power operates in this space?" His gaze faltered, just for a second, and that minute chink in his armor felt monumental. "You're stepping out of your lane," Russell warned, his words laced with venom. But Mia sensed the current was changing, and her courage bubbled over. "And that's exactly why it's time for that lane to grow wider. Your intimidation tactics won't work anymore. We're ready to redefine the narrative." As she stood on the precipice of that declaration, the satisfaction of standing true in a moment of confrontation filled her with fierce ambition. But her heart drummed with the risk, each beat reminding her of the thin line between success and jeopardy. As Russell retreated slightly, Mia felt emboldened, but also painfully aware that this battle was the beginning, not the end. More exchanges would occur, more risks taken. But that wasn't enough to quell the whisper in her mind, reflecting the fear she was embedded with. What if this escalated into something she couldn't control? With that thought looming, Mia understood she had awakened something, not just in herself, but in the faces surrounding her. These stories would not only bring a personal reckoning, but could unravel the very fabric of power dynamics surrounding them. The tension in the room thickened once more, and just as Russell prepared to re-engage, Mia felt an unfamiliar calm wash over her. Here she stood, ready to embrace the complexity of what lay ahead. "Now that we have your attention, let's begin this conversation," she said, steadying her breathing. Would she be able to wield the power of their truths effectively, especially against a foe like Russell? She knew they were on the verge of something significant, but as they prepared to forge ahead, the gnawing question remained in the depths of her mind. Could she truly lead them to victory, or would the shadows of doubt prove insurmountable? Mia emerged from the tumultuous encounter with Russell Hawthorne, a renewed sense of self propelling her forward. She had finally confronted not only Russell, but the long-standing fears that had held her captive. Walking out of the cafe, she felt lighter, as if the burdens she had carried were beginning to lift. Her colleagues, instead of retreating in fear, rallied around her. Their expressions mirrored her own transformation, an awakening of collective resilience. The initial backlash from Russell was nothing compared to the strength they could derive from sharing their stories. In the ensuing days, Mia spearheaded the initiative to compile and amplify their narratives. Each person's story contributed to a larger tapestry of experiences, illuminating the injustices they faced daily. Mia guided her colleagues to envision their truths as powerful weapons against oppression. By channeling vulnerability into courage, they began to rewrite their shared destinies. The project culminated in a powerful presentation that Mia coordinated, uniting the collective voices that had once lingered silently in the shadows. When the day arrived, she stood in front of the assembled staff, pulse thrumming with energy, no longer fearful but invigorated by purpose. "Today we reclaim our truth," Mia declared, her voice steady and ringing through the room. The narratives flowed seamlessly, each story resonating deeply and echoing through the hearts of the audience. Faces once familiar and cold transformed as vulnerability breached the defenses they had erected against discomfort. The impact was palpable. Authenticity rallied support. Russell watched, his guarded facade crumbling further with each heartfelt account. As the final story concluded, there was a standing ovation, a torrent of admiration and solidarity that reverberated through the space. Mia stood at the forefront, fully aware of the momentous triumph she and her colleagues had achieved. They had shattered the chains of silence, igniting the flame of change and recognition. In the weeks that followed, Mia experienced a surge of validation. Multiple offers for speaking engagements arrived, her insights solicited not only by her workplace, but by various organizations seeking authentic narratives to challenge outdated paradigms. Russell's influence dwindled, not because he was vanquished, but because cadences of compassion and community had replaced the fear he wielded. Mia recorded a series of empowering videos, utilizing social platforms to reach out to those who felt unheard. She became a beacon of strength, demonstrating that integrity and resilience could upend systemic injustice. Her community rallied behind her, forming a network that provided guidance and support, further dismantling the reigning norms that had perpetuated inequality. As time passed, members of her community began to embody the same courage she had demonstrated. Inspired by Mia's journey, they shared their personal stories, sparking dialogues that rippled through their workplaces and beyond. Bit by bit, they began redefining the discourse surrounding privilege and voices, fortifying themselves against complacency. In reflecting on her journey, Mia embraced her personal growth. She had metamorphosed from the timid maid, an overlooked presence, into a fearless leader advocating for dignity and respect. She had learned that the whispers of doubt could be quelled by the triumphant roar of collective voices demanding acknowledgement. When she looked at Alana, who had begun to grasp the significance of her mother's actions, Mia felt proud. She was showing her daughter that courage was infectious. With each triumph, she was building a world where Alana would thrive, unencumbered by prejudice or silence. Mia had come so far,
And it was with gratitude that she recognized the strength she had tapped into. The journey had redefined her, establishing her not just as a fighter, but as an architect of change, a title well earned through tenacity and resolve. As she stood poised at the threshold of further endeavors, driven by a desire to uplift more voices, her path became clear. There would always be hurdles, but within her lay the unwavering confidence it would take to continue the pursuit for equality, a journey propelled by stories igniting lives anew. Now is the time to support this inspiring narrative. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that capture the essence of personal achievement. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and propel these powerful stories forward. Don't wait even one more second. Comment your reactions and theories about Mia's incredible transformation. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Together, we can elevate the stories that deserve to be heard.